Welcome all to a place of black joy that we take as a matter of principle. So we work hard, we sweat hard, but we're always joyous. We're especially joyous when we see each other. You know, this department is the most huggable department in the whole university. If you are passing through, you need a hug, just come and we'll deliver. The point of today, though, is that it is an open house for us to introduce various things, great things that are happening at the Department of African and African American Studies. And we will start with a talk, introduction to our new building, the model of which you see here. And for that, we have with us Sylvia from the, what's your unit at the?
Oh, it's so long, it's a tongue twister. Facilities Planning and Safety, School of Humanities and Sciences.
Okay, we'll stick with Facilities Planning and Safety.
Yes.
All three of which we take very seriously. So please.
We do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to be able to walk through this virtually with you, this new building. I'm Sylvia Wong, as I mentioned. I'm a project manager from the Facilities Planning and Safety team of School of Humanities and Sciences. So also what I want to mention is that Shannon Silva, the associate director, who was supposed to be here, couldn't make it, but she sends her regards. She's also just as honored and privileged to be a part of this project, to be able to bring AAAS into the main quad. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be working on this project and working closely with Otto, Sandra, and Katie, and also Sasha Muchemi. So yeah, let's get into it. So we did actually hire a local architect based out in San Francisco. It's Letty Matum Stacy Architects. And we definitely want to go local. And what they were focusing on was a few things that we heard from Otto, Katie, and Sandra, which was serendipity and linger. And those were some of the few words that we focused when we looked into the space and how we designed it. And really lingering, making yourself comfortable, creating opportunities for conversation. And also another focus within the architect. I forgot to mention that we also work with land building and real estate project manager and the architect, as well as myself and Shannon on this project. But as far as the space, a lot of weaving community was top of mind, and there was a lot of thought into thinking about where to place AAAS as well as MLK Institute, and they are all diagonal from each other. And part of the excitement is bringing them into the main quad, where we felt it was a community that was underrepresented, and this was the opportunity that we're taking. And that is also something we're truly excited about. So looking into the floor plan, this is the new floor plan of the space. What you see on the right-hand side is the first floor. The other side is the second floor. And the spaces in the blue is really faculty offices, lecture offices, admin spaces. And then in the pink spaces is the communal areas. And then what I really want to also focus in on is the green and purple areas, which is we have space for grad students, which is shared grad student offices. And I know that's something we didn't have previously. So we're making it happen here. And also huddle room spaces. And another thing that's exciting is AC. I know people don't think about it, but it's really important in main quad. It especially gets hot out here, but I know people will be excited about it. And we also have all gender bathrooms on the first and second floor. And there's a lot of excitement with bleacher seats bleacher seats, and I'll go into that in a second. So we did get some feedback from Otto, Katie, and Sandra about some fabric and color choices that we should be inspired to design. So these are just some images from that. And then a decal that actually Katie helped come up with the architect. And this is actually what's going to be on the window outside the grad student spaces. And some other areas as well. So this is actually a quick view of just from the outside looking in, and this is probably the main highlight of the space, which is the bleacher seats. And then what you see at the very top is actually a bench with some artifacts, and that's TBD and up to the department to decide what's going to be displayed there, but I'm personally really looking forward to see what's going to be placed there. And what I'll jump into right now is a quick fly-through that the architects created, just so you can get a sense of the space even before we are in. And I want to note that some of the finishes we're still tweaking, and this is just to give you an idea of what we're thinking. So this is when you first come in, you turn a left. This is the stadium seats that I was mentioning. And the artwork up top. And I'll mention this is something very different in the main quad. So we're really looking to stand out. And what's really cool about the bleacher stadium seats is that we're hoping to host a lot of different events, all type of events, whether it's panel, talk, there's actually a projection screen at the very bottom. So we can have movie nights. And then during the daytime, it will really just be for students just to lounge. There's actually a lot of outlets that we plan for. And that's actually feedback that I got from the current grad students, that will really support the students and the community to just be lingering. And as Otto mentioned, just for a place for you to rest your feet. So this is a quick view of when you first enter the building, you're facing into the building, and what you first see is actually the AAAS logo that actually Sasha worked on, which looks amazing. Yes. And then to the right-hand side, there are some blank spaces, but it's actually going to have faculty images, which will be taken from our Stanford communications team. So they'll be professionally done. And then you'll see that there's the indigo all around. That was intentionally chosen just based on the inspiration of the design and colors from earlier. And then on the left-hand side right here is actually going to be faculty publications. And then this right-hand side is actually entering into the admin space. And then, of course, the bleacher stadium seats. This is just another view. And then what I'll also mention, this right here, we just put as a placeholder, but I think what we discussed was that this would be an opportunity for a collaboration with students for artwork. But of course, up to the department on how they want to put that. And this is another set of stairs just leading you up. So it's a little bit more discreet so you don't disrupt any events on the bleacher seats. And just another view. And here's that decal, which is amazing. It still lets you able to see inside, but creates a little bit of that privacy. So this is actually view into that multi-purpose room where there's classes or other type of events. Here's another view of the stadium seats. And this is what I was mentioning. That is the view from the grad student space. So they're able to see all the action out here. And then what you'll see a quick glimpse over here is this is a decal I believe Sasha worked on as well to put on the doors. So that looks great. And a view from the top. Oh, I will also mention that there's actually finishes, the actual finishes of the building. We could go over it afterwards, but I'll just mention a few things here, which I think is something to call out. what we're hoping to achieve is there are some trees by the Arboretum, and we're trying to source it and locally mill it to support this project here. So fingers crossed, there's some hoops that we have to jump through, but we're really excited to have that be a part of the story here. And more images up top. So up top, there are some acoustic panels, but there's also just a lot of this wood paneling. It kind of ties into that weaving pattern, what we discussed earlier. So it's kind of just little things that's just shown throughout the space. So what I'll also mention is that there's so much thought placed into every detail in the space. And while the furniture is not necessarily shown here, what we'll probably order is that I'm personally working on the furniture and trying to pull in African furniture designers. And one that I'm excited about, one is pulling the designer who actually placed furniture in Black Panther. We also have a Nigerian British artist putting custom cushions in this pre-function space outside of the main seminar space. And then some of the faculty offices were actually putting an African designer design chair. So anyways, all these little pieces, we really thought it through to make a bold statement within this building. And up top here, at the top of the stairs, this is trash and recycle, but I want to mention on this other side is actually a display case for instruments that the department wants to place in just for visitors to come and just play. And this is another view of the grad student space. So they could see and look into the seats downstairs. And just more about finishes in the rest of the space. The kitchen and the restroom. So really tying into that color theme. So this is the kitchen. We did try to add a splash of color and also keeping it simple and modern, comfortable, cozy. And also the restroom. I think that's about it.
There's one last detail. The tables, the movable tables on the bleacher seats. Yes. Where they can sit. You should mention that also.
Okay, yeah. That's something that we're still kind of finessing is within the bleacher seats, we do plan on putting some adjustable tables. So that makes the space a little bit more usable for collaboration. But also still having those seat cushions so it's still comfortable. So we have the tables, the seat cushions, and also the outlets. That is the feedback that we heard to hopefully encourage people to be there longer and just feel comfortable being in the space.
So will the tables be like type like in an airplane seat that kind of pop, like in a slat that pop up and you can?
That I don't know. We're still trying to figure out what makes the table usable, still adjustable, and safe. Okay. And it's really a safety thing because of the steps. Yeah. And we just know with people moving in and out, we just have to think of a very good and solid solution.
Yeah.
They will not be everywhere. Right. They'll be dotted in, but the idea is to get people to stay, to linger. It's a part of the lingering effect. So, and if students and visitors think that they have a place to even momentarily to sit and work or check their phones, it will be converted into a station where people want to be at. The other thing, if I may, before questions, is that anyone that loves their space, their home, if you go to people's homes that they love, they often have biographies of different aspects of the house. So they'll tell you this mask was procured in Tanzania and I fell into a gutter trying to retrieve it. Whatever it is, there'll be a story. What we planned is that every feature of this space will have a story. So whatever you see, we'll tell you a story about it. And it's because from the inception, we want to show that it's a place saturated with love.
So let me add on top of that, thank you, Otto, is that because of all these different elements that we really thought about and putting into the space, I'll work with Otto, Katie, and Sandra on creating just details, something like that, locally milled wood for the bleacher seats. That's a story that we really want to emphasize, and all the special details about the furniture that we're procuring, whether it's the indigo that inspired our color, the color scheme, the weaving component throughout the space, just all these little aspects. I want that to be a story to be told within this space. And yeah, I can't keep thinking about this, but like I'm just so excited and honored to be a part of this project and try to bring the space to life where I feel like it needs to be. And just, you guys are a newly accredited department.
We are new and yet we are very old. That's why we bring all this collective wisdom into the space. So we may have just been created, but actually we carry a whole, yeah.
I'm excited for all of you and to come see the space next fall. Hopefully next fall when the space is ready.
So any questions for Sylvia?
Sure.
Any question?
Sorry, I forgot to mention there is an elevator in the building. We did keep that in mind also for the restrooms. There are ADA restrooms both on the first and the second floor. Just throughout the space, we did keep that in mind.
Will there be a space for this kind of dedicated to alumni or?
Yes.
Okay. that's
But actually,
that's up
we
to.
thought about, we have lots of offices which we are yet to designate. So the answer is yes.
I think it'll be exciting when you come and look at the new space. And you had a question back there? It's building 80, so it's just right behind us. So it's more in the center of the main quad, facing, I guess, facing the church.
Is the wing, on the church side of the quad? So on the church, the interior quad, exactly. Yeah, this is the exterior. The other side is the interior. It's facing the church. I can answer that. We are also going to source artwork. In fact, I'm supposed to meet a donor who has a lot of African American art, and so the artworks will be heavily sourced from African American art. Some of which will. This guy wants to. I don't know whether he's loaning us or he's gifting, but I'm yet to talk to him. But we'll also buy some things, and we are already talking to a few people. We will need guidance though, because I'm not I mean, Katie has a good sense of art because she herself is an art practitioner. So it is the artwork that will capture. Yeah. Anything else? Any further questions? All right, so we want, before we thank Sylvia Wong, I want to say that the process of getting here has been very, very meticulous. We've been meeting with the architectural team and the team from the facilities office. I cannot tell you how many times, and every detail has had to be passed by us. So they didn't. It's a wonderful experience. I mean, I don't know that many architects, but everything that they decided to implement was passed through us. And we, for example, even the indigo and mud cloth, it was a late addition, but this was really Katie. Katie woke up one day and said, "No, we need a different texture and color, and even the Adinkra symbols." Yeah. So I want to acknowledge the wonderful process of the architectural team and Sylvia and the others in getting the even the fabrics. All these we vetted everything. With every single detail, they gave us lots of alternatives, and we vetted so every detail in the building finally will have been vetted by us. So I want to acknowledge that. So it's been very a magnificent collaboration. And of course, Sylvia has been extraordinary. And it has to be acknowledge. So I want us to join hands, not just in applauding her, but in bigging her up.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll add one other note is that it's been such a pleasure working with Otto, Katie, Sandra, and just the team. It's just made it so much easier. I'm working such a wonderful project. And adding on to this little tidbit, I think you might want to know about this architect. Not only do they really care, but they also think about other aspects that might resonate with us, which is specifically something that's still coming up and new within just architects and their work is designing with freedom. And one aspect that I'm hoping to push for within this project is really procuring products that are manufactured or fabricated without using incarcerated labor. So it just seemed really relevant and resonates with this project. So I'm hoping that's the last piece in terms of building the space that we can do that. So that's the type of architect that...
It's a type of story.
Yes, exactly. There's so many things that I feel like I'm missing. Yeah. We will make sure we put that in that detail so we're all, up to speed in this space. So,
yeah, thank you. So what happens next? Will you show them the...
We can. There's a 3D model of the new space. We also have the actual finishes of the space here.
And we can take off the roof so you see inside. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll come when the new space is ready.
It's too much.
So, the entrance to the building here and here. This is the multi-purpose room, the classroom. So this is really the admin suite. These are some faculty offices, bathrooms here, and the elevators right here.
Wow.
Whole building.
Not to cry. It'll be my 5 years. Not y'all's. Ooh. It's just so beautiful.
Hey y'all. So I'm Ashante. I'm the Student Services Officer. Hey. So I'm going to introduce our 2 alumni and then we'll start the Q&A afterwards. So first we have Dr. Shamika Klassen. She is a 2011 AAAS alumni. She currently works as a user experience researcher at Google. Dr. Klassen holds a Master of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary and a doctoral degree in information science from the University of Colorado. Born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, she is the oldest of 4 kids and grew up with a single mom. She was admitted to Stanford in 2007 to pursue an engineering or math degree, but graduated in 2011 as a AAAS major. Driven by the desire to serve the marginalized, she worked with AmeriCorps in New York City and focused her doctoral studies on how Black people create, appropriate, and imagine technology to survive and thrive. Her dissertation explored how Black women, femmes, and non-binary people imagine the future of technology. She spent 2 summers during the doctoral program as a remote user experience research intern, first at the Seattle design and development firm Substantial, and then at Google. Dr. Klassen will share with us how AAA shaped her life while at Stanford and then in her career as well. And then we also have Jessica Anderson, who is a 2014 AAAS alum. She is multi-talented as an artist, a creative, and brand strategist. Also known as Jessica Laurel, she is an award-winning recording artist, songwriter, and storyteller from Chicago. Her cinematic soul sound likens her music to an orchestra traveling from the south side of Chicago to Ghana. Her 2016 debut EP, For Freedoms, ranked number 12 on the UK Soul charts and led her opportunities to perform for Oprah, Sterling K. Brown, the U.S. rep for, John Lewis, civil rights freedom writer Rip Patton, and Reverend Jesse Jackson, garnering 1 million views on YouTube, Laurel's music videos have gained national attention as they inspire empathy from the issues of police brutality, Black women's liberation, and representation in STEAM. The Huffington Post commented on Laurel's work, stating Laurel uses her song and video to provide an anthem for the contemporary movement for Black rights. She is a rising superstar with incredible potential, an artist who inspires, and someone that we should all be looking out for. Yeah. Laurel has been featured in The Root and BuzzFeed as an artist to watch. In 2018, Laurel toured the country, hosting intimate concerts in the series she called The Sit-In, invoking the historic legacy of intimate demonstrations in the civil rights movement. Following the tour, Jessica released her debut album, War Love, having teamed up with Stanford alum Tyler Brooks, also known as Eagle Babel, of The Outsiders, and Troy Miller. Her song, Here Comes the Sun, was named Best R&B Song at the 2019 Independent Music Awards. She has also sung with Kanye West's Sunday Service Collective, Kirk Franklin, Faith Evans, and Maverick City Music. Jessica is also a creative and brand strategist who has spent the last 10 plus years enhancing external profiles and taking educational and entertainment content from ideation to execution for companies such as K-12 Education Consulting and Education Elements. Jessica will share with us how AAAS has shaped her life while at Stanford and then her career. Thank you. Okay. So I have some questions from our students, and I'll just read them off to y'all and y'all answer. So from your experience working in and then in your general life, what makes DAAS different from other disciplines?
Well, I can start. I think the interdisciplinarity is so key, especially right now where a lot of things are dominated by technology. Being able to look at it through the lens of humanities and social sciences and challenge from such a critical lens, I think would be very difficult if you didn't have that layering of different disciplines that you're able to then synthesize through a program like this one.
And also add that I think it's unique in that you are seen for your whole person. Moving through the program or moving through the department, excuse me. There are so many different ways that people speak to and that the scholarship speaks to who you are and the world around you and who you are becoming. And I think one of the greatest gifts that I felt blessed to receive as a result of moving through DAAS was the opportunity to be armed with language. Language for my own experience, language for what I was seeing in the world, language to then combat certain things, and also language to understand structures, systems, and opportunities to reimagine things beyond those structures and systems. And I think that there are plenty of places, departments, programs where you can learn about what was, but you're not given opportunities to dream of what could be. And I think here is the space where you're given permission to do those things, encouraged to do those things, coached to do those things.
Empowered.
Yeah, empowered to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank y'all. So what skills did you learn through DAAS that you still use in your life, your work, and your career today?
The pause is not because there's not anything.
No,
Pause is
there's
because
so many.
there's several things. So where to start?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I would say for me, there's a number of different places. So in the music space, that reimagining work shows up all the time. And I think the language also shows up all the time. But I also think that there are many times where just having the reps, getting the reps in of having difficult conversations, naming what's happening, you would be surprised how even just within the last several years, what we've seen, how the pendulum has swung politically, right? The way that people showed their, I don't want to say inability to, but their lack of experience with talking about systems and structures. And then also the places where you need more than courage to do a certain thing, right? And so I think for me, I was really blessed in that when it was no longer popular to talk about certain things, I still felt like I had beyond courage. I had tools to be able to engage with certain things. And also I think when it became popular, I understood that it was more than a cliche, and I was armed with research to talk about things beyond just the surface level. The other thing I would say that has been really helpful for me has been acknowledging that, like, moving through African American studies, I had a dual concentration. So I had a concentration in education policy, and then I also had a concentration in identity, diversity, and aesthetics through IDA. And so it was the kind of thing where I got armed with research methodologies and, took the time to really learn more about how to engage, scholarship, and also like write policy memos and think, about how to enact change in a very sort of like granular way. And at the same time, also engage the arts and culture with a critical lens. And I think those kinds of things, that duality and like also the flexibility and autonomy, I learned a lot about agency in my journey that then I could map onto my career. And so even professionally, being able to move in two different spaces, one where I'm helping education-based companies think about how do they tell the story and how do they approach impact, but then on the other side, being able to move through music spaces and craft art in a way that is cognizant of the world around us and what we're trying to create. All of that is a direct result of the experiences, the learnings, the community, the encouragement that I got through African American studies. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm thinking back to how I came into the program, and I came out of math camp and engineering camp, and I was going to do CS and all these things, be a techie. I got weeded out of one of my first math classes my freshman year, first semester. I was one of 2 Black people, one of 3 women in a class of about 40, 50. And so that experience was really damaging to my sense of self and what I thought I was capable of. And so by the time I got to African American Studies, which I think is a program that found me, I think, in a lot of ways. I kind of got pulled in with some of the classes. I'd take more classes, and then the next thing you know, I'm standing across that stage with a degree in my hand. And I think that through this program, I was able to find parts of myself that I didn't realize were lost or that needed nurturing and cultivation. And because of that sense of self that I left here with, I was able to hold fast to it as I maneuvered and navigated other spaces. Something that I think is part of the Stanford experience for me was this question of, do I belong, or how do I earn my place here and whatnot? And I never had to do that in this program. That was where I realized I have a voice, I have something to contribute that is uniquely because of who I am and my experiences. So I take that with me in every program that I've been in and the job that I'm at now. Being in a place like Google, it's almost like that a question again comes up. How do I maintain my space here? How do I do well? And it comes back to just being myself and recognizing that that is more than enough, right? That I've been able to make it here because of the people who have poured into me, because of the things that I've been able to do, and finding value in myself and my community and wanting to advocate for myself and my community. Like, those are the things that I've learned through this program that I've taken forward in all the different spaces that I've been blessed to be in.
Can I add something? And this is less so from the standpoint of my student experience, but actually working for African American Studies. One of the things that, during my time as a staff member became so important was just, how do you think about creating spaces that aren't just safe because we say that they're safe? It takes more than just a declaration in order to cultivate that. And then how do you create spaces that center those who have who come into the space expecting to not be in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it was more than just a conversation. It really became a place of like training of how to do that, how to interact with students in doing that, how to advocate in spaces where students are not present to do that. And I think that kind of education from the standpoint of working in African American studies became, I think, the groundwork for even what I do in professional spaces, but what I do in my personal life too. Like that shows up everywhere for me. And so I'm really grateful for that as well.
I feel like I identify myself with that kind of story where it's like I kind of just fell in and it's like, oh, okay, like this is where I'm supposed to be at. I love those stories from my students too. Like, at least I know you, this is where you're supposed to be, not in CS. That's where they all like to go, not there.
And it's like, if you do that, then no, you can come here and find respite.
Right, exactly.
And this is a space.
Bring them together, yes, because that'll only strengthen what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, that leads into my next question, actually. So we just talked about your intended major entering Stanford. So like, what career did you anticipate when you came in? And then why did you choose DAAAS instead? And how does that kind of serve you now? We kind of spoke about it a little bit, but the students were asking.
Yeah. Well, when I came in, I wanted to be a dentist. And then so many people told me why I shouldn't be a dentist that by the end of my first quarter, I was like, okay, I started the Pre-Dental Association for students. I will let them go and do that. And then I wanted to do computer science. I took a CS class and ended up not deciding to do that. I wanted to be a financial planner. And I wanted to help people who were low income and marginalized with their finances. So I took econ classes for like a year and then realized, nope, don't want to do that either. So by the time I was a junior and I had accumulated all these different paths in my life, I really felt like instead of trying to match what I'm doing to what my, profession might be, what is really calling to me in this experience? Because this is such a beautiful place. There's so many incredible people doing wonderful things. And I wanted to find a way to take advantage of the time that I had left. And I felt like I could pour myself into African American studies. And the benefit of that, one of the many, is that it didn't anchor me into one of those things I thought I was going to do. So that when I moved through the world, I did AmeriCorps after I graduated and then found myself in New York City. And I was like, I want to serve the world, but I don't know who and how. But I was open enough because of the interdisciplinarity and the way that this program is set up that I could pursue all kinds of things along the way.
Yeah. Just to be sure that I answer the right question, you're asking what you came in planning to do professionally. I did not know because honestly, in my family, getting to college was the summit. So the concept of grad school wasn't really a real thing for me until junior year. The concept of life after college wasn't really something I felt like had to be figured out, because I was just every day sort of like, wow, we're really here, and of course there were certain conversations being had because the reality was, between my two parents, my dad was like, you got into Stanford, you don't go to Stanford to then fill in the blank, right?
Yes.
Which I think, for a lot of different majors, that's going to come up. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. But ultimately, I think on the other side of things, my mother was sort of like, whatever you feel gives you a sense of purpose, that's where I support you being, because ultimately, that's where life is going to support you. And everything else will fall into place. And I think that there's a way to be strategic. And this is a place where you're going to be encouraged to be strategic. I think that there are sort of some assumptions that are often made about moving through, any kind of ethnic studies related work where the question then becomes, what are you going to do with that? As if there aren't applications for that everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. And in fact, it should be everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think, grappling with that became super important. I think because of those kinds of questions externally about what I'm doing with this particular degree, then that prompted me to go, well, I'll give people the answer that they wanted at the time. My father wanted, you're going to be a lawyer. So I was like, I will do something with law, and then, I started down this education policy track, and I was like, well, I'll teach, and then I'll become a principal, and then I'll become a superintendent, and then, maybe I'll work at the Department of Education. And it really became about that. And I did Stanford and Washington, and really got really excited about applying all of these frameworks to that. And then my father was like, and where's the money in education? And I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna win here, sir. But I also remember having conversations in this space about, you could spend your life doing what everyone else expects you to do.
That's true.
Right? Or you could give yourself permission to do what you feel compelled to do. And I do think that those kinds of conversations pushed me to dream up something different. And I'm grateful because I'm not lacking anything. If anything, everything here enhanced what I do now. So, yeah.
This is a good one for that. As a follow-up, what would you say to current or prospective students who are unsure about what to do with the DAAAS degree?
I would encourage them to change the question. Instead of asking yourself what you can do with the degree, because a majority of people who graduate with a college degree don't end up in a profession related to that degree.
Yeah.
Facts. So instead of that question, asking them, what do you want to do with the time that you have here? What kind of person do you want to be? Who do you want to spend time with? What kind of things do you want to do? Like, I studied abroad in Kyoto, studied Japanese for 2 years. Because I studied Spanish in school. I wanted to do something different with the language, etc. Like, that was something I came in knowing I wanted to do. I lived in Okada my freshman year. And they were like, are you sure you don't mean? I was like, yes, I have a plan. I have a plan. But, I made those decisions because I knew what kinds of experiences I wanted in those capacities. So, if you're questioning, if you're wondering, look at the classes that are being offered, look at the programming that this department offers, and then also look inward as well. College is many things to many people, like the experiences that you can have, especially at Stanford. So yeah, I would change the question.
I get that there are some folks who, even after being probed in that way, will be like, my financial situation, the realities of my life, my family circumstances make me feel like I don't have full permission to really do that, to not ask that question. And I fully encourage people to give themselves permission to do what she's encouraging folks to do. But if you're still there, I would encourage people to explore what fellowships, research opportunities, conversations with practitioners of different types around that are orbiting or are deeply entrenched in this environment, what they can offer you. Because all of that gives you opportunities for exploration and further defining what things within this work can you see yourself doing that gets you where you're trying to go. I think there's a way that people move through a Stanford where the track is so defined that then when they're in a space where there's a bit more wiggle room, that it's framed as ambiguity rather than freedom, right? And so I think that because of that, we end up missing out on all this self-discovery that we can do and the opportunity to like do that actively, right? So if you decide I'm going to take up studying abroad, how can I leverage this time abroad to learn more about what it is that I want to do out of my career? How can I make use of research grants to be able to explore a particular topic that might confirm what it is I want to do? And so like the 4, 5, however many years you spend here, I truly do end up becoming about like discovering oneself and discovering what kind of path you want to take. And you're still doing it through, this particular lens. And I think whereas certain departments don't give you that flexibility because it's so strict, so demanding in terms of like, it has to be this way, you don't have as much room to study abroad. You don't have as much room to take on this extra opportunity. And that's not to say that this isn't rigorous, because it is. Yeah. But it is to say that within that space, there is freedom. And that freedom is a gift. It's not a curse. Mm-hmm. So I think leaning into that and knowing that your time can be spent discovering those things and confirming those things, and that people want to talk to you about what it means to pursue the careers that they're pursuing.
Yeah. I would also want to add, like, when I got a Master of Divinity, I went to seminary. Most people think, oh, you go to seminary, you want to be a pastor. There are so many things I've seen people do with a Master of Divinity in policy, in education, in government work, in just any number of things. Because when you break down African-American studies or theological studies to their core, these are building blocks that you can then marry with yourself and then go out into the world and do what it is you want to do with enhancements from these programs. So I just wanted to say that as well.
One more thing. I'm thinking about the moment when I realized what I wanted to do. It came my senior year. Yeah. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I have to come in freshman year and I know what major I'm going to have and what career I'm going to have. It's like, no, it came March 1st, 2014. And it's cemented in my brain because it was my capstone project for African-American studies. And I'm on a stage talking to a room full of folks after this thing has happened, and someone goes, so what's next? And then I say, you know what? I want to do this for the rest of my life. Actually, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I remember everybody roaring back at me like, thank you for finally figuring it out. We all knew. Yeah. But it was in doing it and giving myself permission to do it and being encouraged by this community to do it that then made me say, okay, I'm going to do it. Yeah. So, yeah.
I feel like a lot of the students come in think with that mindset, like I have to know what it is. Because I was the same way. I didn't know what I wanted to do until literally, I think it was my last quarter. And I was like, oh, this is it. I didn't know. I didn't waste time, but I was like, I took a lot of time for me to get here. Mm-hmm. But it's like what y'all were saying about being like, listening to yourself and like letting it guide you instead of you trying to like fix the road to fit where you want it to go, and like being strategic about the time, because you can change your mind, and I don't think the students give themselves that credit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I graduated, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had an AmeriCorps position lined up, but I mean, even beyond that, I had no idea. Yeah. For years. I knew I wanted to get a PhD eventually, but that's an accomplishment. That's not a career. And in the course of getting my PhD, I was, listen, yes, kindred spirits. Yes. But I mean, it wasn't until then when I was able to figure out that all of these different stops that I had along the way were coming into focus together. And those together created the path before me to do research and center marginalized people in, the design and development of technology. That's what I do now as a user experience researcher. But if I started where I am and tried to trace back, like I couldn't reverse engineer what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears. What was your favorite memory of DAAS during your time at Stanford?
favorite? That's cruel.
That's like having a favorite child. Like, you can't do that to me. Okay. I think one of the classes that I took, there was a semester or 2 semesters where I took like black film, black television. I think it was a black film. And we had the director of Boys in the Hood. Is it John Stapleton? Singleton. He came to speak in the class. I did not at the time. I was like, oh, that's really cool that this, he's thinking back. Oh my gosh. So like, yeah, that was incredible.
I cannot follow the rules. I'm sorry. There's no way. I can't do it. So, engage me in a top 5. All right.
I'll allow it.
Okay. And please add in. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right. We're in this together. You know what? But Oprah's after. Well, technically, there were 2 Oprah experiences.
Oh.
But one of them, and I'm hollering. Well, okay, so that's it. That's hilarious. I really don't know. One of them, it just has to be the casual happenings in this building, right?
Oh yeah.
So it just has to be said. You'll come in, you'll hang out, you'll run into somebody else, you end up on this tangential conversation that blows your mind, and then you're like, how did I end up being here for 3 hours?
Yes.
Where did the time go? But also, I love it.
Yes.
So I'm going to come back, right, and just do it all over again. So that has to be one, even though it's not specific, it happened all the time. 2, I would say definitely the process of my capstone. It was grueling, but it showed me so much about myself and pushed me. And for those who aren't familiar, it was through IDA, so the Institute for Diversity in the Arts. So I ended up doing a research project focused on the role of Black sacred music in the role of Black sacred music in justice movements domestically and abroad. And so we covered everything from hymns to reappropriated hymns, spirituals, traditional and contemporary gospel music, and looked at everything from, the civil rights movement to South African apartheid protests to Velvet Revolution, like so many different things. But it all went from paper to musical. And so, being put in a position where I'm trying to bring together the community that has surrounded me for 4 years in this project was tremendous. I also would say there are like these memories that I have of just like when life got hard, also coming to this space and being poured into by the staff.
Yes.
And those moments, I'm like, I had family here. Like, it wasn't just, I want to make sure you get these particular grades or you pursue this career. It was like, no, when I'm mourning real things happening in my world, I know this space has got me holistically.
Yeah.
And then I would say on the staff side, when I was working here, I also loved the memory of when we took students to go see Solange. And we talked about the mundane and the purposefulness of the mundane, and the way that can actually show up in the artistic space. And we had, a trip off campus, and we took time to break bread together and talk about those things. And, people had pre-reading to do, but the conversation was so rich, and people could ebb and flow between just like the scholarship and the real talk, Yeah, I would say those things.
Okay. I do have another one.
Yes.
I do have another one. I think it was one of the St. Clair Drake. It was Dr. Mae Jemison.
Yes.
And I have a picture with her. We're just chatting. Someone snapped the picture. I loved that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Star Trek. She was on Star Trek, and I also love Uhura, who was on Star Trek, and she first interracial kiss. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. convinced her to stay on that show, and then because she was on that show, just so many people like Dr. Jemison were encouraged and inspired. So to get a chance to talk to her was just
And she went in on techies and fuzzies in a way that I had never heard before. I was like, oh my gosh, please get us right.
Yeah.
Also, that makes me think of when Angela Davis she's made so many, intentional moments here, including teaching a course here, and spending time with her was extraordinary. And even I just remember having a conversation with her about like how it feels to be seen as an icon. And she's like, I don't enjoy that. But I get that for some people, having a figure is helpful to them. And so I surrender to that, but it's not my aim. And just being so moved by the way she operated in these spaces, because you could see that she wasn't trying to have any airs about her, or like, she's like, no, I'm here to invest in you. Like,
yes.
So yeah. Clearly.
We could go on clearly. Yes.
Okay, last question. What do you hope or envision for DAAAS in the future?
I'm going to cry, but it's okay.
It is okay. It is okay.
Because I've already been crying. So we already had this conversation. And part of the reason why I'm having such a strong reaction to that is because this was a future that we had hoped for. And I know for myself personally, after working for it for so long, stopped hoping for. And I want to own that because you get jaded, you get jaded. And I mean, honestly, even just sitting back there listening to the thoughtfulness behind what's happening in the space, I was like, man, I'm jealous because, you work hard for the thing and then you're like, oh, now it's happening. And I wish I was in the room for that, but there's such a tremendous beauty in being reminded that this was what it was all about from the beginning, reimagining.
Yeah.
Right. And so giving ourselves the courage to imagine something different and to work towards that. And so I'm really grateful to be able to see the thing that so many people, generations long before me, were hoping for and dreaming for. I hope for and dream for that same feeling of connectedness and community and kinship and holistic care showing up in a space even when it's bigger. Because, when things get bigger, it can be harder to feel, and so keeping that same tight-knit, feeling, even as things grow. I also hope for and imagine, the kind of space where people are aspiring to come back here and be a part of the faculty. That is on their wish list. That's on the wish list. I want.
I'm up the road.
Right. Okay. It's top tier goal. The summit of my career would be to be a part of the faculty here for DAAAS.
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing to get to a point where the research coming out of here is front runner, right? When people think about leading scholarship in the field, they think of DAAAS. When people think about the kinds of practitioners doing the work, whether it's from community organizing or policymakers or leading folks in a variety of fields, right? They think of DAAAS. And in the ways that I would say certain names become so common that, we don't even think about their origin. I mean, I'm not to say that we don't want to remember, because we do want to remember, but to say that it is so pervasive. I want DAAAS to be as much of a staple for Stanford as CS or Hoover Tower. I want people to think about Stanford and think about DAAAS. That's a staple. DAAAS is the staple for Stanford versus a history of all sorts of stuff that I'm not so proud of. I want DAAAS to be the thing that people associate with this institution, and for that to be a goal for them. Like, people are applying to Stanford because they want to be a part of this.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would co-sign 100% on that. Yes. And I just to add to that beautiful vision, my hope is in the people. We are the dream and the hope of our ancestors. We're our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I think this is a place that fosters that. So my hope is in all of you, all of the alumni, all the current students, all the prospective students, to come here and just be the amazing people that we are, and just have this space amplify us and just unleash what we have to give to the world.
So that's actually all the questions from the students. I'll leave the floor open if anybody has any questions in the room.
In my language, we have a proverb that says, there is perfume coming from your mouth. Yeah, you've spoken like there's perfume coming out of your mouth. It's beautiful. Yeah. And, one means your speech is perfume. You've delivered us perfume speech. Beautiful. I love the question. This one.
Thank you. It's more of a, I want to say thanks for the comment you said earlier about, because I'm housed in the history department, but clearly I live here. Right? And I feel like for students who come from a particular class, who might be socialized to come to schools like these, they're out skiing, so they're going to come to class late for a week. I never heard of that. Yeah. Or I'm going to France to research this or that. That is seen as common. But when I say I'm going to go to Canada to explore, they're like, what are you doing African American history? Why do you got to go somewhere? Where are you going? Why are you dancing? What are you doing? You know? So, so that idea of like giving yourself permission to, as if because I'm a Black woman here, I have to like work hard or show that I'm working hard. I'm just having fun in these places, or it has nothing to do, or it doesn't inform my analysis of the Black experience here if I leave these borders. So I just really appreciated both of that from both of you guys, because so much of what you said resonated, like, why are you traveling there? What are you doing? To where I had to get funding from outside to do the work that I'm doing now. And now they're all about it. So like giving Black students here, both graduate and undergraduate, the permission to explore, to find themselves, to travel and have fun. That's okay if we have fun there too, right? So I really appreciate that. And so I guess my question is like, once you get out of this space, and I know you sort of alluded to this before, and I like how you framed it as not what will you do, but what like can't you do, what can't you do? Like there's this broader world. What are some things that you did practically to kind of hone in? Because once you're kind of done, you're done, So what suggestions do you have for graduate students or graduate and undergraduate students who are embarking on that finishing journey to like get on the right step towards applying like all of the great things we learned through DAAS in the real world, so it doesn't sort of just come undone? Because it's a lot applying for the job. You can kind of lose yourself a bit, right? So any thoughts on that would be super helpful. And I just want to say thanks for the inspiration and the perfume. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think steps that folks can take, I'm always thinking about looking inward, right? And knowing who you are, knowing what's important to you, what are your values. When you're thinking about taking on a job or starting a career, that kind of commitment, like you can get a job in a number of places, but what is your day-to-day going to look like? What kind of people are you working with? Where do you want to live in the world? Like, there are some of these kinds of questions that can be helpful. I would also say tapping into the kinds of things that this department offers in terms of alumni, in terms of the faculty, like who you can have conversations with. And like you said, those conversations can be just heartwarming to the soul, just feeding into you in a way that you wouldn't be able to just bouncing around in your own head. So taking the relational aspects and resources that are here and really taking advantage of them. Yeah.
I'd also say in those conversations, asking questions of like, what hard skills are useful to you in the role that you're in? So that way you can take an additional class here or there to start developing those skills, or get a fellowship that introduces those skills, right? Because I think the other thing is, if we're being honest, the job market has drastically shifted. So I can't necessarily say what it's like for a recent grad right now to be applying for a job. I'm not going to pretend like I really get that. But the through line is that people expect experience without, like, for folks who wouldn't have experience, and don't want to pay you what you should be paid if you do have experience. So ultimately, it just creates this scenario where folks are having to find a way to demonstrate that they are prepared, even when you're first emerging from a degree of some sort. And so those like research opportunities, fellowship opportunities, like the applied practice spaces are that space to really get a lot of that and say, no, I have this degree and I have experience. Those things are here. And so, yeah, the way that you can leverage those kinds of opportunities, I would say, are also really important. And then I can't necessarily say what the hard skills are for whatever lane you're trying to, take, which is why those conversations become so helpful. So yeah, just using that time to pour in holistically, but then also asking some targeted questions about what are those hard skills.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I finding now in graduate school is that I'm like having to explain how AAAS DAAS is like a rigorous field of study, kind of similar to what you were saying, right? Like people kind of see it as something that's fun or like whatever. And I'm curious how you all talk about your experiences and your degree in these different spaces that you're now in a way that feels that translates well as students think about journeying out, and we all think about what we want to do, what we want to be when we grow up. How do you translate that?
I think one thing that I do is I will tell folks like the kind of classes that I took, the kind of work that I did for my capstone. I wrote about the mental health experience for marginalized students in undergraduate communities. And I think some of these skills that we've touched on earlier about being able to have a critical lens, being able to synthesize in an interdisciplinary way the historical, the current, and then the hopeful future of the lives that we live, the society that we exist in, and those kinds of tools that we're equipped with in this kind of program. I think that kind of perspective and positioning does give people a sense of the rigor. I'm thinking, for example, about there was a class that I took, and you'll have to forgive me, charge it to my mind and not my heart. But there was a class that we took about the books and films that had to do with race relations. So like we did Imitation of Life, we did Showboat,
It was like comms and AAAS and
Yes. So the ability to be able to speak cogently about those kinds of relations across media, like being able to we didn't just read books and watch movies, like it was more than that. So being able to demonstrate that kind of level of depth from the courses that we're taking, from the work that we're doing, I think that's one way.
She needs a tiny
one of the things that we underestimate, as students, is how much the world of work values service. By service, I mean a simple thing that you might not think of, organizing a trip for students, or in other words, something that serves your community, no matter how uh, you know strictly defined or vague, but how to actually see that as a development of very, very crucial skills for the workplace. So I'm using service very loosely, but what I really mean is a conscious and intentional practice of serving community. Small, it could be women, it could be, homeless people, and so on and so forth. Because when it comes to it, all, industries value people who think about others. So, except in the American political system.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. They value the empathetic, because to be empathetic is a form of work. It takes a lot of labor to be empathetic. But if you have demonstrated it, through doing something which is not just about yourself, it will end up being very useful when you're actually applying for jobs and getting.
Yes. Yes. And then you've multiplied.
You think it's just soft skills, but it's really important.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then you have more people who can speak to your character, people who can, help tell the story of who you are in the world.
The other thing I was going to say is that I haven't actually been asked about what I got my undergraduate degree in a really long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, I think there's so much pressure we place on ourselves during our time in college of this is going to have so much bearing on my life. And then it's like the reality is like, oh, nobody's asked me this in years. Now, mind you, it's showing up in everything that I'm doing.
Right.
But like having to articulate why it matters hasn't happened as much in recent years for me. I do think that it brings a whole lot of value. When I think about the brand strategy work, like a lot of it has to do with how do we tell a compelling story about who we are. And so much of my experience moving through African American studies was about doing that very thing, and digging deep and learning more for the sake of being able to articulate that story, and being proud of it. And then I think, on the music front, after having so much time exploring so many art forms that are so intentional and doing so in a way that brings a level of quality and tastefulness while being extremely intentional, I think then I feel compelled to do that very thing in my own art. But people aren't necessarily going, and so how did you make that African and African American studies work for you? No, people aren't really asking me that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would also wonder at the people who are.
Yeah.
And why they're asking that.
Yeah.
Not that it necessarily is, a negative connotation, but that's also something to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'd have people, when I was younger, say, "Oh, you went to Stanford. What did you?" And I said, "African American." "Oh, good for you."
Lord. Okay.
Yeah. So.
My question is about, I guess, like managing expectations. So I'm class 24 years out, so my 5 years next year. But I think about all the things I thought would have been in existence by this point, or wherever I thought I would be, and thinking about like current students that might be watching this footage, like, in your 10 or your 15 year, where did you, think you would be, and advice on managing our expectations about, like, it's cool, like, cool to plan goals, but also like, yeah, some of your principles, some of your metrics, I guess, of like new success. If your metrics of success were different from, if that matters in how you're calculating of like where you are versus where you thought you'd be, if that makes sense.
What I'm going to say right now has nothing to do with the degree I got. It just has to do with life learnings.
Mm.
I was the kind of person that needed a plan to feel safe and held tightly to that plan. And so there would inevitably be a lot of disappointment because life will upend your plans. I remember hearing someone say, God laughs, at,
when you make a plan.
yeah, or triumphs in the ruins of your plans, however you want to think about it. But ultimately, I realized as of late, actually, when certain key life events happened, that for the first time in my life, I no longer had plans, in part because I stopped daring myself to have vision. And a lot of that is because when life devastates you, you then realize that having a vision takes risks. It takes courage. It takes willpower. It takes dedication. It takes sacrifice. And if you don't want to be disappointed, then having a vision feels like setting yourself up. Yeah. And so I didn't even realize it, but psychologically, I stopped having as much vision because I didn't want to deal with any more disappointment.
Yeah.
And so what I will say is that be gracious with yourself if you ever encounter a season where it's so fragile. Like, I'm so fragile. Having the vision right now is really hard. Maybe the goal becomes, I'm just going to pick one area, have vision around that, right? And also recognizing that your relationship to the vision will change. So before it was about, I have the vision so I can accomplish it as I imagined it. Now it's, I have a framework for my life, and life is going to surprise me. So this is less of a specific blueprint as to how the house is going to be designed, and more like I've drawn a picture of it, but like it might change a bit. Maybe the colors are going to change a bit. Maybe, where I put the stairs might look a little different. Maybe the rug here is going to be, and that's okay. I want the house.
Right.
And as long as I continue to dream up the house and stay committed to building the house, I'm going to be in my home soon, right? So, and I know I invested in that. And so I think shifting the relationship to the plan becomes extremely important. And then also honoring where you're at and where your heart's at, where your life circumstances are, to like measure out to what extent, I need to have vision. Maybe having vision for all the things is a little bit too much right now. And that's okay. That's actually okay. This is a kind of space where so many people seem to know all the things about all the things, that then it feels like something's wrong with me if I don't know all the things.
Right.
And actually, folks are just
It's the
pretending.
duck syndrome.
They're pretending.
But beneath the water, those
Yes.
legs are just a flailing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people will continue to pretend outside of the space too.
Yeah.
And so just like honoring yourself in that, and then also knowing that like some of those surprises are not necessarily going to be bad things. Like encouraging yourself to think, you know what, today show me how good it can get. Right? Like maybe the surprise will actually open up doors. Maybe the surprise is going to breathe new life into something. So, yeah.
So one last question. And then because I think our speakers have given us enough perfume. And, any last questions, comments? Well, all right then. Thank you.